Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey there.
Today, we're cracking open a really fascinating source. It takes us back in time a bit to look at some pretty bold predictions made about a company that's just been absolutely central to the tech conversation lately, Nvidia.
That's right. Yeah, we're diving into this piece from The Motley Fool by Beth McKenna. It was published June 5th, 2025.
Right.
And what makes it so interesting, I think, is that she's looking back at her own predictions from March 2020 about where NVIDIA's business and its stock would be by March 2025, 5 years later.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack these predictions. How accurate were they? What big swings did she call correctly? Where were maybe the misses or the surprises?
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, what lessons can we actually pull from this? Looking back at forecasts for a company that saw just, explosive growth.
It's kind of like holding a mirror up to the last 5 years in tech, right? But seen through the lens of just one analyst's view of one pretty important company.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So starting broad, how did the author actually grade herself on this whole set of predictions?
Well, she gives herself a B or maybe a B plus overall. Feels like her predictions on the business side were mostly correct.
Okay.
And she definitely felt she was accurate on the stock price outcome. Nailed that part.
And speaking of the stock price, that's really a headline-grabbing number from this period, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
That was the prediction exactly.
The specific prediction was that NVIDIA stock would, quote, solidly outperform the market over the next half-decade.
Okay, solidly outperform. And here's where it gets, really interesting. Let's look at the actual performance. So from March 1, 2020 through March 1, 2025, NVIDIA stock's total return was, okay, ready for this?
Sure.
1,760%.
Yeah, and just to put that astronomical number into perspective for you listening, the S&P 500's return over that exact same 5 years, 118%.
Wow, wow. Okay, doing some quick math here. 1,760% versus 118%. That's nearly 15 times the market return.
Exactly.
So the article points out a $1,000 investment you might have put into NVIDIA stock back in March 2020 would have grown to $18,600 by March 2025.
It's just incredible. And the article attributes this fantastic performance mainly to one thing, the just overwhelming demand for the company's GPUs.
Right, the graphics processing units.
Yep, GPUs and the tech built around them, stuff that really enabled that huge explosion we saw in artificial intelligence capabilities, the AI boom.
It really makes you wonder, what it feels like to make a prediction that pans out like that. Almost an 18x return in 5 years.
Right.
Okay, let's dig into the specific business predictions she made. First up, she looked at leadership. What was the call there?
The prediction was that co-founder and CEO Jensen Huang, he'd still be leading the company.
And status on that?
Correct. Yep. Huang was still at the helm through March 2025. Turned 62 during that time, actually.
And why does the article highlight that prediction? Is it just he was still there?
Well, it points to his foresight, really. Suggests that starting, over a decade ago, he was strategically using profits from their core gaming business to position NVIDIA for what the author calls the AI age.
Okay.
So that long-term vision, seen as absolutely critical to their success over this 5-year window.
Got it. So leadership, check. And a lot of the success attributed to that vision. Let's move to what was NVIDIA's kind of bread and butter back in 2020. The gaming market.
Right.
She made 2 predictions here, I think.
Yeah, 2 related ones. Prediction 2 was that NVIDIA would still be the leading supplier of graphics cards for computer gaming.
Was she right?
Correct again, yeah. Not only did they hold on to their lead, the article notes they actually increased their market share quite a bit.
The numbers on that are pretty stark too, right? Q4 2019, NVIDIA had around 69%.
Yeah, 68.9%. Basically 69%.
The desktop discrete GPU market. By Q4 2024, that share had jumped significantly to 82%. Compared to AMD at 17% and Intel way down at just 1%. Really dumb. Yeah, prediction 3 was about the gaming market itself.
Yep, prediction 3 was simply that the global gaming market would continue its robust growth.
And that was also correct.
Yes, correct. Growth observed pretty much across the board. Number of gamers globally, total gaming market revenue, PC gaming revenue specifically, all up.
Right. And NVIDIA's own gaming platform revenue certainly reflected that growth, Went from, what, $5.5 billion in fiscal 2020?
$2 billion.
Up to $11.35 billion in fiscal 2025. So that's a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of about 15.5%.
Which is solid growth, right? 15.5% year over year on average.
Definitely solid.
Yeah.
But here's where the story takes that, dramatic turn you mentioned. It's crucial context for understanding NVIDIA's transformation. Gaming was their biggest platform in fiscal 2020.
Right. It was over half their revenue, 51% specifically.
Okay.
Fast forward to fiscal 2025. Gaming was suddenly their second largest platform.
Second largest.
Yeah. Contributing only about 9% of total revenue.
Wait. So it went from over half their business, 51%, down to less than 10%, 9% in just 5 years. That's an insane pivot. What on earth overtook gaming so completely?
Well, that brings us perfectly to prediction number 4, which was all about AI training dominance.
Okay.
Prediction, NVIDIA's GPUs would still be the gold standard for AI training.
And was that correct?
Absolutely correct. Spot on. The GPU-based approach is still widely considered the gold standard for deep learning training models.
And even with competition stepping up, right?
Yeah.
AMD, Intel, others trying to get in. The article points out NVIDIA's grip on the data center GPU market stayed incredibly tight.
Yeah, super tight. There's an estimate from IoT Analytics mentioned saying NVIDIA had something like a 92% share in 2024. Just huge.
92%. And the article adds another layer, too. It wasn't just AI training. Since 2020, NVIDIA's GPUs also grabbed the biggest share in the AI inferencing chip market.
Inferencing.
Yeah.
So that's the hardware used to actually run the AI applications once they've been trained. It's exactly running the models in the real world. They got dominant there too.
Okay, so this dominance in the data center, that explains that massive segment shift you were talking about.
Completely.
Data center revenue just exploded.
Yeah.
It grew from just under $3 billion in fiscal 2020.
Right. $2.98 billion.
I get this. $115.2 billion in fiscal 2025.
Yeah.
A jump from under $3 billion to over $115 billion.
In 5 years. That's a CAGR of what? About 107%?
That's the math, yeah. 107% compound annual growth rate.
Wow.
And that's what powered the data center segment, moving from just over a quarter of total revenue, 27% back in FY 2020, to being an overwhelming 88% of revenue in FY 2025.
Okay.
That transformation, according to the article, that is the core story of NVIDIA in this period.
That scale of shift is just...
Yeah,
almost hard to comprehend. Now, okay, while many predictions were spot on, she didn't get everything exactly right, especially on timelines, correct?
Right.
Prediction 5 was about the autonomous vehicle timeline. Exactly. So the author predicted that the legalization of driverless vehicles would sort of turbocharge NVIDIA's automotive platform growth. Specifically, she expected fully autonomous vehicles, like level 4 or 5, to be legal or very nearly legal right across the U.S. by 2025.
And the status on that one?
Well, that timeline proved too optimistic, clearly. Fully autonomous vehicles are definitely not very close to being legal nationwide yet. It seems like they're still, at least a few years away, maybe more.
So she kind of saw the underlying trend. NVIDIA's AI-powered drive platform being important for autonomous vehicles, but just missed the timing on the market adoption or the regulatory side.
Exactly that, yeah. The article notes she still believes this event will be a significant growth driver for NVIDIA whenever it does happen.
Okay.
So it's a good example, I think, of correctly identifying the potential, but maybe misjudging how long that real-world rollout, the legal stuff, would actually take.
Makes sense. Things often take longer than we think. Okay, finally, prediction number 6. This was sort of a wild card, right? The X factor.
Yeah, exactly. The prediction was basically that NVIDIA, being highly innovative, was likely to introduce at least one major new technology over the 5 years that would kind of surprise people.
And did that happen, according to the author?
Correct. Again, yes. She highlights the Omniverse platform as a key example.
Omniverse.
Yeah.
Right, that's their simulation platform for virtual worlds and digital twins.
That's the one. Launched in 2021, the article mentions it's been adopted by some pretty big enterprises like Amazon, PepsiCo, BMW Group.
Okay.
For uses like product design, optimizing workflows, building virtual factories, that kind of thing.
So it shows their innovation engine wasn't just focused on the obvious stuff like faster gaming cards or more powerful data center chips.
Right. They were working on other potentially big things too.
Okay. So let's try and pull all this together then. Looking at this scorecard, the predictions, the outcomes, what does this actually tell us? I mean, we saw the stock go absolute parabolic, driven mainly by AI. We saw the entire business mix just flip dramatically from gaming to data center. Yeah, huge shift.
We saw strategic leadership, called correctly, ongoing innovation, called correctly. But we also saw how hard it is to nail specific timelines, like with the autonomous vehicle legalization.
So what stands out to you as you hear these results summarized like that? Is it the just sheer scale of the AI impact, reflected in the stock price, and especially that data center revenue jump?
Or maybe it's the agility, the ability of a company to pivot its main revenue source so drastically in just, half a decade? That's pretty remarkable, too.
Definitely.
What lessons can you, listening to this, take away from this whole exercise, looking back at these predictions? Does it maybe highlight the importance of identifying those huge underlying technology trends, like AI was clearly becoming,
Right.
versus trying to pinpoint exact adoption dates for things? Does it maybe emphasize the value of strong, forward-thinking leadership, like with Jensen Huang?
It really does seem to underscore that point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
While predicting specific market timelines like the AV one can be really tricky.
Identifying a company that is strategically positioned and highly innovative, right in the path of a massive, accelerating technological wave like AI, well, that seems to be a powerful predictor of growth and market performance.
That was a really fascinating deep dive, looking back at some pretty bold predictions about Nvidia over the past 5 years.
Yeah, it was interesting.
We saw some striking successes, right?
Yeah.
Predicting the leadership staying put, market share increases, even in their original core business of gaming, the just immense power and eventual market dominance of key technologies like their AI GPUs, and even managing to predict sort of surprise innovations.
And at the same time, we learned, or were reminded, how difficult it is to get those specific adoption timelines exactly right, even when the underlying trend seems pretty clear and the company's ready for it.
Right.
And the source article mentions, kind of as a side note, that the author is already planning another predictions article about Nvidia.
Oh, interesting.
Which suggests, she believes there's still significant growth ahead for the company.
Which really raises an important question for you to consider, doesn't it? Given the absolutely explosive growth we've just reviewed, growth fueled primarily by AI training and inferencing chips, completely dominating the data center. What happens next?
What's the next act?
Yeah, what are the future catalysts that could possibly drive the next big phase of highly profitable growth? The growth that the author seems to believe is, quote, far from over.
That's definitely something to think about as you look at the whole tech landscape going forward. Where does that next wave come from?